The Epstein file fallout continues, and the Super Bowl happened. I don't know if anybody really watched it, but it happened. We're here to talk about that and kind of establish a little bit of a connection between the two, if you don't mind. This is the We the Patriots podcast. I'm your host, Sal Assante, and let's get right into it. So, yeah, 3 million documents dumped on everybody's computer screen, and what to make of it is questionable at best. I would like to know what you guys think of it. To be honest with you, I've been covering it pretty extensively for the past year or two on the show. The whole Epstein file thing is kind of absurd on its face, if we're honest about it. The whole handling of the document release, of Trump claiming that he's going to be the most transparent administration in U.S. history, then releasing fake documents using Pam Bondi to a bunch of influencers, to then claiming that the entire Jeffrey Epstein hoax was a Democratic foil to get him, to them being pressured by his own base and the rest of America into releasing all of the documents, and then doing so. It was a wild ride, and we're still not done. Allegedly, there's still millions and millions of documents to come out. Document release that happened on January 30th was, I believe, at least a month late, according to the deadline that, I don't know, was it the Supreme Court or just an executive order, whatever it was, said that documents had to come out by December 21st or something along those lines, and instead we got them on January 30th. So, yeah, this whole handling of this thing has been a mess, and I think it's a huge stain on the Trump legacy that will be written. But at the end of the day, it's just another item on the list of things that in the most recent Trump administration, starting in 2025, that has been quite honestly horrible. I think that most people, and I say this as someone who voted for Trump in 2025 or 2024, I should say. I think I represent a lot of people, maybe not most, but a lot of people in saying that this is not what we voted for. We did not vote for terrible handling of the Epstein documents or documents in general. We did not vote for inexplicable ICE raids that are fueling hatred across the country one way or the other. We did not vote for more wars. We did not vote for military action on countries that have no real play in America. We did not vote for continuing the wars in Israel or in the Ukraine. And yet we still do it. That is what, and I shouldn't say we, because I have no business in this administration, nor do 99.9% of his voters. And yet this is what we're getting. This is what we get as, honestly, one of the worst administrations that I've ever seen. And I guess it's kind of what we deserve. We allowed ourselves, I myself in particular, have allowed myself to be hoodwinked into thinking that Trump would be better off. That is highly questionable at this point, whether Trump or Kamala would be better. At least if we had Kamala, you would know that 100% the administration would be run by her cabinet and not by her. So it's really up in the air now, and that's unfortunate to say, but it's the honest truth. The Trump administration has been one of the biggest letdowns in my life. I remember back in 2016, I couldn't vote yet, but I was very much involved in politics, paying attention, following the news, all of that. And when he actually got elected, and subsequently when he got in 2017, it was like a bull in China shop. He didn't know what the fuck he was doing, but he was going to do it anyway. He had a lot of ideas, and a good amount of them got implemented, stuff from his campaign. And it was cool to see. It was someone who clearly was not a politician that got into office and was doing whatever the fuck he thought would be the best for the country. And now we are staring at this totally different man. I think we knew it in 2020, definitely knew it in 2024. Especially after the assassination attempt, that it was a different human being. It was not the same one from 2016 that came down the escalator in Trump Tower. But at the end of the day, it still is not what we voted for. And it's unfortunate. When it comes to this Epstein file thing in general, is it surprising that he's in the documents? Not even a little bit. Documentation going back decades at this point of Trump being associated with Epstein. I think everybody and their mother knew that he would be in the documents. That's not really the question. The question is the handling of the documents. The handling of the situation has been so poor from the administration that it leaves a lot of question marks. Like, how involved is Donald Trump? Is he protecting himself or people that are close to him, people that got him elected? What is he doing? What is his administration doing in terms of not being transparent about the Epstein issue? I think it raises a lot of questions like that. In this new document release, I think that someone is crazy if they said they've read them all. It's 3 million documents, and they are released now 10 days ago. So it's ridiculous to say that you know what's in there. But some of the highlights for me were, number one, redacting names of people who actually may have committed crimes rather than redacting the names of the victims. Part of that redaction process and part of the reason that allegedly the files weren't getting released to us right away was the fact that we were protecting the victims. Well, the other one, of course, was we have to protect our sources and methods of our country, which is ridiculous. Sources and methods being we use a pedophile ring. Yeah, okay. That's great. Let's just not highlight that. Anyway, one of the biggest points is we have to protect the victim. And that's understandable. You don't want the people to be, I think, as Kash Patel himself said, we don't want them to be victimized twice. We don't want these people to be living through the horrible actions that happened to them again after they've already happened by being plastered publicly. Okay, I am all for that. I think that makes perfect sense. But when these documents came out and you see from redacted to Jeffrey Epstein, there ain't no fucking victim that's going to be emailing Jeffrey Epstein, and yet that's what we get. We get protection of the pedophiles. We get protection of the creepiest fucking people in the world. And at the end of the day, I think what it comes down to, in my eyes, is that it could not be more obvious that this was going to happen. I believe I am on record saying, and if not, I will say it here, we all knew that nothing was going to come of this Epstein thing. The way that it's been handled has rubbed salt in the wound in a way that I could not have expected ever. However, with all of that said, we all knew this wasn't going to do anything. And I think, I don't know where I heard this, but I heard it from somebody, so I'm not claiming to be the originator of this thought. But I think that one of the highlighting pieces of this whole Epstein case thing is that there is no criminal charges that are coming from this. There's not even a joke about it. They're just releasing documents to release documents. And at the end of the day, it's not like we're talking about the JFK shooting, which was another thing that Trump claimed he wanted to be transparent about. It's not like we're talking about that where everybody's dead or is no longer involved in politics and you can release those documents and nobody's going to be hurt. Almost everybody who's involved in the Jeffrey Epstein case in one way or another is still involved in geopolitics today. And that is the most absurd part about it. And the fact that there is no even hint at there being a criminal case being brought up is the worst part of the entire thing. That just means that there is no backbone to this file release. Never was, and there never will be. And that's sad. It's sad that we're watching our elites get away with one of, if not the most grotesque scandals in American history. And honestly, possibly in world history. It's disturbing. It's disturbing that we as the public and a significant amount of the press knows the truth, or at least some of the truth when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein case, and yet our government is doing nothing about it. And even beyond that, not only is our government not doing anything about it, a significant amount of our government and our elites are implicated in this. You know, I saw, of course, you have like the Prince Andrew, who's already been scrutinized, removed his public. Donald Trump is in there multiple times. I think even over 1,000 references. Again, that does not mean, well, maybe I didn't say this in the show, so I'll say it now. Just because you're in the file doesn't mean that you are implicated in any wrongdoing. And that's the craziest part, is that they're just releasing documents that may have nothing to do with anything. You know, I saw a document with like Post Malone and someone else had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, and the women in the photos were clearly at least 25 to 30 years old. And it was a photo of Post Malone when he may have been 25 years old. So there was a clear effort to throw in crap that had nothing to do with the wrongdoings of Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplices. And that was on purpose. Honestly, if you couldn't see that coming, I don't know what to tell you. You shouldn't probably be paying attention to politics if you don't understand that they are going to try to poison the well when it comes to finding information. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about the Epstein files, I think that it's quite obvious that we're never going to get to the bottom of this. Again, the amount of people that are implicated, even like Elon Musk was in the files, which I didn't even know was possible. Elon Musk is in the files, and he made this whole fucking shebang about Trump being in the files, and that's why he doesn't want to release him before he got ousted from the government position he was in. It is just unfathomable how much crap has come out. There's like an NFL owner who's in there. Of course, Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, is in there. There's so many people implicated in this, possibly implicated in this, and nothing's going to be done to any of them. And it's disturbing, but at the end of the day, I've been saying this for months, and if not, probably multiple years at this point, that we are not going to see the bottom of the Epstein file list, or the Epstein client list, I should say. We're not going to get answers. And the reason being is that the people who control the outflow of information when it comes to the Epstein case are the people that are implicated in the Epstein case. So it does not make any sense. And to be honest with you, as disturbing as it is and as absurd as it is to think that we have a bunch of pedophiles and scandalous people that are running our country, the unfortunate truth is that you, me, and everybody else in the country that is not involved in terrible pedophile rings or terrible crime syndicates in general, what we're going to have to come to grips with is the fact that most people in our government, in some way or another, especially if you've risen to the level of president or, Speaker of the House, if you reach that level of power in our government, odds are you are compromised by something. It may not be pedophilia. It may be that you cheat on your wife and they have the blackmail on you. It may be that you are a closet racist and they have recordings on you. It may be that you are a globalist like Bill Gates and you think there needs to be population control using vaccines. It does not matter what they have on you. They have something on you. And that is the whole reason that you've gotten to that level of power in the first place. And that's because you are controllable at the end of a stick that is being used to beat you. So, how do we fix this? Well, in my opinion, there's really only a couple of ways of going about it. Number one is the fact that we need to vote people in that are adamantly going into office with an idea in their head to rid this corruption out of the system. At least that's a start. My perspective in paying attention to politics over the past 10 to 12 years, which is, even though I was 14, 16 years old when that happened, I was paying a lot of attention. And there have been a lot of good people that seem to go into politics, but then come out and are still in the system, to be fair, but they come out on the other side as a poisoned well themselves. And they may go in with the best intentions, like a Donald Trump in 2016, and they come out being a shill just like the rest of them, and maybe even worse in Donald Trump's case. But if you go into office with this mindset of being against the current system, being against the current oligarchs, I'll call them, that are in power, at least you have a shot. You think back again to Trump from 2017 to 2020, getting COVID kind of out of the mindset because it's a very different incident. His first term, he actually had a lot of really good intentions when it came to how he wanted to fix the country. And don't be mistaken when we say that the country needs to be fixed. It doesn't mean that the country's not one of, if not the greatest places to live on the earth. But our country is not living up to our ideals that our founding fathers put in motion for us. And I think that needs to be attended to. And the best way, I think, is that people need to go into office wanting to tear down this protection ring that is happening for our elites. Elites should not have any extra rights that we as citizens have. It just shouldn't exist. And now another fix that's going to happen that, honestly, it's kind of like a 50-50. Every now and then it gets floated, probably once a year at least. It gets floated as an idea and it gets shut down. But at some point or another, we're going to have term limits, and that's for congressmen and senators. There's a term limit on the president that technically didn't exist up until Roosevelt decided to stay for 4 terms, and outstay is welcome. But that really didn't exist. It was the precedent of George Washington stepping down after 2 terms, and that kind of stuck. But I think it's a good rule. You don't let someone stay at the top. They basically become a king. It doesn't make any sense. And the same should go for, again, the Congress and for the Senate. And I also think that a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court while we're at it should be abolished. Maybe you should have a longer term than everybody else. You're able to carry your wisdom in your study. So say we'll put a 20-year limit on the amount of time you're allowed to serve in the Supreme Court. But at the end of the day, that's going to help solve so many of these issues. If you're only allowed to be corrupt for 4 years, 8 years, maybe you'd be better off going in there and actually helping your country for the better if you're going to have to go back to work and get a real job anyway. Rather, you have people like Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell. All of these people have been the profiteers of government for decades. And I think it gets really old as Americans to watch these people clearly not making decisions in the best interest of Americans, but making decisions for the best interest of the ruling class, which is what they are. So you solve that problem and, maybe it doesn't solve corruption, but what it will definitely do is solve the turnover rate and get those people the hell out of office because they should not be there. So that's just my thoughts when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein case. Again, just to reiterate, we are never going to get solid answers on this. We're never going to find out who's implicated, who's not. There'll be thousands and thousands of names dumped on us to muddy the waters. We're not going to get good answers. And you should have expected that. I expected that. This whole file release was ridiculous. But the one thing that stuck out in my mind is when you have an email going out to Jeffrey Epstein and it says, your youngest girl was extremely naughty last night or something to that degree. You can go look it up. Fuck the email. Fuck that piece of wording that I just said. The name of the sender's redacted. At the end of the day, our government is protecting pedophilia and it's disgusting. So anyway, moving on to another disgrace here in America is my point of view. So I could be wrong and you can argue with me in the comments about it. But last night's Super Bowl sucked. Recording this on Monday morning. Last night's Super Bowl was fucking atrocious. It was one of the worst football games in general that I've seen. The issue that I'm going to pick up is not the quality of the football that was being played, because that happens every now and then, but the halftime show. People are very divided about this, and I think that the answer is very simple. You don't have to go watch a TP USA show and that's got Erica Kirk pyrotechnics going off every 5 minutes, whatever. I didn't watch that. I didn't take my time to go and do that. Just walked away. And at the end of the day, having a halftime show that at least 50%, if not more, of your audience cannot understand, your core audience, that is like a slap in the face, honestly, to your fans, to your promoters. And I thought it was ridiculous, honestly. And I've gotten into arguments about it, and I think that it's just absurd to want to put on a show. Now, granted, I will grant the point that the halftime show is not really made for men, especially not in the past 10 or 15 years. It is clearly made to rope in the women to the day that is the most watched televised event yearly in America. Grant that, totally understandable, is what it is. But to go beyond that, not only is this thing catered towards women, but your fan base, Americans in football, mostly black and white Americans, not many Hispanics, although there are, not many Hispanics playing football, not many Asians playing football, although there are. It is probably 95+% white and black. And that is the same for your audience. Okay. It is probably well over 90% white and black Americans that watch football consistently. Why are we having a halftime show that they can't understand? It is absurd to me to think that, and I understand that the founding fathers even did not make English our official language of the country. I understand that. At the end of the day, it's what we speak as Americans, and de facto, English is our main language. Having in our most popular sport a performer come on that does not speak English is absurd. And to be honest, what I thought it was a slap in the face to Americans who were basically, the NFL knows that they have them over a barrel and they will be watching, and they're forcing something down their throats that they don't want to watch. Now, granted, I think that many people especially the male figures in society, probably just walked away if you couldn't understand what was being sung, like myself. But it's absurd. And I think that what it is, just like the Trump administration telling you that the Epstein hoax is a Democratic hoax and that it doesn't exist until you get pressured and then you have to. Just like that, the halftime show being non-English was a slap in the face to Americans. It is our biggest sporting event every single year. There are hundreds of millions of people who watch, at least 100 million people who watch in the United States, and hundreds of millions around the world that watch the Super Bowl. And it's a slap in the face. And another thing is that from what I saw, so this is not my experience because I didn't even try it, but from what I saw, even people who were trying to get captions to understand what the fuck was going on in that halftime show, the captions were in Spanish, so you couldn't fucking understand what was being said. That is ridiculous. Totally absurd. I think it takes away some of the glory of how great American business can be to create an event that is so nationally, internationally loved and is universally watched. Today, it's basically a holiday for a lot of people, is the Super Bowl, and putting on a show that they can't understand in the halftime. I just can't get beyond it. I think it is absurd. Again, the game was terrible itself, so walking away from it really wasn't that hard, but man, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? We can't, as a nation, our leaders cannot properly lead us. They cannot get us out of wars. They actually like putting us into more. They put us into debt that we can't get out of. They cannot be upfront and tell the truth about scandals that they are part of, especially ones that are implicated in hundreds, if not more, of our leaders across multiple different spectrums, whether you're talking about business, sports, or politics in general. They can't tell us the truth about this. You know, it's not a small scandal like the tan suit for Obama. This is something that implicates a lot of people in some very, very disgusting acts. And we're never going to know the truth about it. And just like that slap in the face, I think that putting on a show, not only a terrible Super Bowl, but putting on a halftime show right in the middle of it that nobody can understand, I think is absurd. And I think it really did not do well by the country. So those are just my thoughts. Probably two things that don't connect much. I hope I connected them decently well. I want you guys to let me know how I did, what I talked about in the comments. If you disagree, go ahead. If you're from Puerto Rico and you're pissed at me, go ahead. I totally understand. You've been a part of our country for over a century at this point. If you disagree with me, then I honestly think that's great. I love disagreement. I love having conversations, but at the end of the day, I think America did worse for itself in the past 2 weeks. Yeah, those are my thoughts. I think that we are in a bad, bad spot as a country, whether you're talking about economically, politically, our ability to have scandal-free leaders. We're in a bad spot. We need to come out of it. And I think the only way really to come out of it is to keep talking about it. So again, let me know how I did in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. If you disagreed, I want to hear about it. And I will see you guys next week. Peace out.
I want to be something, not nothing. Trapped inside my dream and I'm running away from these demons. But the feeling's so good, I'ma keep dreaming.